Hey girlfriends, so this is Krista Brave picking up from the last video. So where we left off was a man in a pickup truck with bad boundaries, I feel, had pulled up next to me, and I was going to move, but I didn't. I was ready to record, and just decided to go with it. And you know what other people do sometimes deserves to be ignored. And so at the end of the last video, there was someone right behind me who was basically trying to, he saw that I was recording, and he was choosing to try to speak to me while I was in the middle of that. And he's still nearby. I have a lot of compassion for him, but I just told him after I turned the camera off, boundaries, and you know, I'm trying to work here. So he's over there sitting on a park bench. So I'm gonna pick up where we left off. It's still the same day. I'm reading from my journal. And if you're new here, this channel is about women's intentional community and mind, body, spirit content, which I think is probably best revealed, I think, through a lot of my own personal journal writings, which is how I get a lot of my own thoughts and feelings out. And so I actively promote journaling, and I wanted to give you guys a nice backdrop of where I am now here on the waterfront in Central Oregon, on the coast, obviously. So, and this was written, this entry I think about a week ago, when I was still farther like on the I-5 in Oregon. So I'm writing in public. It's now 2 p.m. and I have my truck back. I was stuck in Central Oregon waiting on a repair. I'm sitting in another restaurant enjoying a virgin strawberry daiquiri. I picked another Mexican place because the music is always a mariachi band, upbeat and jazzy. The chips and salsa are free, and the air conditioning is nice and chilly when it's another scorcher outside today. And I'm regrouping and figuring out how to fill my time between now and Friday when I get the work done. The good news is the parts can be ordered and work completed before the weekend. They didn't find anything else wrong with it, and said that it looked clean and that I've taken good care of it. The bill is a little over $1,000 with a diagnostic and all parts and labor, which isn't out of line with the research I did previously. I'm glad I took it to a specialist and left the other place, which just was a specialty shop. And I talked about this earlier. I felt the vibe there was very misogynistic and unprofessional when I visited, and the vibes I was getting there caused me to leave, and they lost my business. Let's see, if the owner embodies misogynistic traits, the chances are good so do the employees, I have found. Likewise, if an owner or manager discriminates against women, he's probably hired techs who think and act just like him. I feel my stress level going down now that I know what I'm looking at for repairs and cost. I actually have not had to deal with any major auto repairs in a long time. But then before I went off grid, I barely drove at all. And my brand is known for longevity and reliability, which is why I bought it in the first place. My vehicle might be an older model, but I feel that it reflects who I am. I'm an older model, and it's not the age, it's the mileage and the maintenance. So I'm an older model. I've tried to maintain myself as best I can, and I think I'll probably get at least another 100,000 miles on the truck. I wonder if I'll realize my dream of visiting all 50 states in my vintage vehicle. This first year off-grid, I'm sticking with the West Coast, Pacific and Mountain time zones, because that's where what I'm already familiar with. I've never been east of Denver, and there's a whole world of real estate out there that's unexplored for me. Every state is different, every town is different, every neighborhood is different, and I like being an explorer on wheels, even traveling slow. I like staying in an area long enough to really get a feel for the people there and the vibe. And I save money on gas by not exploring more cross country this year. And I save money by not paying rent and utilities, being tied down to a fixed location. When I was a homeowner for over 20 years, I had to deal with finding repair people for the house, just like I do now. I have to find repair people. And it was always one of my biggest stressors. It seemed like no matter how much I researched and tried to screen people, I would wind up often with a strange man or men in my house, often acting inappropriate, saying inappropriate things, and or overcharging me. They could tell when you live alone, and for a predatory type or a misogynistic type, they saw it as an opportunity, I think, to act predatory, testing boundaries and limits. What will you do? So now that I've become a full-time traveler, all I have to deal with are auto mechanics. I've simplified my life bigly. And living in that poorly managed apartment last year when I was downsizing to go off-grid was even more stressful than being a homeowner, with constant inspections, mandatory maintenance, bad news, downer emails from the leasing office, such as mandating everyone to buy renter's insurance, of which they were getting, it was like they were partnering with them, so they were getting commission to recommend that to the tenants, which is a conflict of interest. So that was just one example that I wrote down. I didn't want to dwell on it in the journal, but and I did know I was going to be reading this to people, so I don't want to be too negative, but there were a lot of things I just won't even get into. I'm sure everyone has their stories out there. I've heard a lot of renters say similar things. So, but going from a homeowner to a renter was a big shock for me compared to when I was younger and renting before I was a homeowner. It seems, I don't know, like things have changed somewhat. And at that place, there were strange male employees in and out of my apartment about once a month. And there was nothing I could do about it. It was a very poorly managed place. And there was no way to know that before I signed their required 12-month lease. I never want to lock myself into that time commitment again. I feel safer inside my camper, my home on wheels, legally off street or at a wild campsite. Location, location, location. the real estate agent's mantra, location matters. I just got up and changed tables in this restaurant and changed my location to evade two women who sat in the table in front of me, and then started talking loudly, and then brought in another person on a speakerphone, and I was being forced to overhear their conversation. They were talking about a movie and using profanity. So I picked up my basket of chips and salsa, my daiquiri, and my bag, and changed tables. I changed my location, and now I don't have to listen to them. Instant relief. Just by moving, just by leaving and going about 10, 15 feet away. Reducing proximity. And everything in life happens within the context of location, location, location. As a former plant medicine enthusiast, I took multiple trips abroad to explore consciousness studies with shamans and in healing centers south of the border between 2012 and 2016. And that was the last time I did it. All those trips were spiritual turning points in my life. Every retreat emphasized the importance of set and setting. In other words, location. Be careful where you go, who runs the place, the type of clients they attract, because that vibe will permeate the experience. And it was always true. I learned firsthand at every place that selecting the right location and the right crowd with the right management and the right model for healing was vitally important, because ESP is real. Telepathy is real, especially when amplified by plant medicine. Proximity and environment matter. So whoever you're around, whatever you do, wherever you go, you're not really separate from your environment. We're all affecting everyone and everything around us, and vice versa, in other words. So I got what I needed from those trips, and I would never do plant medicine again with a group unless I knew them well and what kind of people they are first. I never want to be in people's heads like that again. And therapists are basically professional head shrinkers. But I prefer to talk to people and listen to what they say more than do it that way anymore. The two loquacious ladies sitting at that table just left, and now it's close to 4 p.m. I feel like a writer in residence in this place, and there's been a shift change, and the new waiter kindly just offered me more water with lemon, even though I'm not his table and I paid a couple of hours ago. I'm the only customer in here now. Bliss. Was I ever so checked out and unconscious about how my speech affected the people all around me who could overhear it in public places? Yeah, I think I have been that person, which is why I don't get mad and I can't judge. I just move. I'm more conscious now about my own behavior. So I move so that maybe those ladies will get the message, wondering why I didn't want to sit by them. Old Chris would have just kept sitting there, putting up with it and feeling annoyed the entire time. I'm so glad that my boundary awareness has improved over time, and my boundary enforcement has gotten much better also, although it's always a work in progress, especially since I was raised to have no boundaries and accept other people's bad boundaries without question, creating a codependent type of victim mentality often. And many women fall into this pattern, being raised to allow others to control their lives, occupy their time, unable to identify their own emotions and needs or honor their own inner guidance system, often letting others walk all over them without protest, to exploit them, being unable to speak up, unable to identify or ask for what they want, unable to voice their needs, unable to move, unable to say no or no thank you, unable to define where they begin and other people end, which is what a boundary is, like a fence around, like, at what point do you say stop? No. No thank you. I'm so glad I'm not dealing with codependent enmeshment so much anymore in my personal life, since I've spent most of my adult years overcoming my own conditioned, programmed behavior. And if I hadn't become my own therapist, advocate, and best friend, I still would be. And that is where I left off. And I've been meaning to get back to the journal because it is actually now over a week since I wrote in it. It's still July, and I really have not had time, because a writing session of that length can be hours of writing. It flows for me because I've had this journal writing practice for many years, since I was, even before high school, I started writing in journals. So it's a little bit easier for me, I think, to get words out on paper. I know people are a little bit sometimes intimidated by a blank page or what to say, but it's just like anything else. It's a practice. When you start doing it, it looks one way, and the more you keep doing it, if you enjoy the process, if it works for you, it's like putting in the reps. Every time you write, you get better, and your voice gets a little stronger. And I think being able to write about things can help you then verbalize them. So it's been very useful for me to sort things out, and also to problem solve. I use a narrative type of format with my journaling, a lot for feelings identification. It helps me to problem solve and think of new ideas that I might not have if I just did it in my head. It also, I will write, I have planners and like other things that I kind of write down more, like, like what I did today to kind of remember. But I also will try to take those memories and kind of discover the deeper meaning of my journey with my journaling. Like, why did this happen? Why is this in my immediate timeline? Why am I experiencing this? Why did I meet this person? Or why did this happen? And try to find greater wisdom in it. And I think that that's a big benefit of having a journal. So I do actively promote that for people if they are looking for a way to process. And if you aren't finding, or even if you are finding what you're looking for in any type of therapist, psych, coach, a friend, hopefully, you have a support system that you can talk to. But if you don't, you know what? A journal can be a big help, and you can be your own best friend. You can be your own advocate and your own best therapist, and tap into your own inner wisdom, because in the end, that's all any of us have. I'm wishing everyone a great day, and thanks for joining me.